All right, co-main event, man. Rude boy, Randy Brown. He opens up as a minus 240 favorite against the Night Train and Jared Gooden, who's a plus 200 underdog here, man. And I agree with the line, AJ. I'm not going to lie to you. Randy Brown is a very experienced man. Fighting at welterweight, he's 13-4, 7-4 in the UFC. And Jared Gooden, not Jared Gordon, who fought last week, but Jared Gooden. Listen, man, 18-6, but he's 1-2 in the UFC, and he got his first UFC win in his last fight via knockout. The question here, AJ. How did this fight get matched up? I'm actually kind of curious. Randy Brown is a much bigger name than Jared Gooden right now, and I wonder if it was just like a, hey, do you want the fight? We'll take it. I mean, if you look at his last fight, Randy Brown dominated Alex Oliveira, man. That was an absolute domination. He was much bigger, much longer, but you look at the fight prior to that, man, Vicente Luque put it on his ass, bro, like bad. But Vicente Luque is a bad man, so that's not to be too unexpected. For Jared Gooden, really, man, he's fought Alan Joban, where he lost via decision to a very experienced veteran in the game. That was his UFC debut. Lost to Abubakar Nurmagomedov, which was a unanimous decision. I mean, come on, that's a great boxer, great wrestler right there. And then got the win over Nicholas Stolze, where I picked Stolze in that one. I was proved very, very wrong. So how did this fight get matched up, AJ?
I think it has to be one of those, you want to fight? Sure, let's take it. I got one on my contract because I don't really see any heat behind this, if that makes sense. Like there's no build up, there's no shit talk, there's no history behind either of these guys, and it's really two guys on the come up, really. Yeah. I mean, Randy Brown has a little bit more heat behind his name, so he's not necessarily on the come up anymore. But Randy Brown, he struggles with the big names. You know, he has that L to Nico Price, he has that L to Vicente Luque. He's beat some other big ones like Brian Barberena, Alex Oliveira, but kind of past their time, if that makes sense. We're seeing those guys on the decline. Where Jared Gooden, man, he's if any chance is coming up to make his name, it's this fight right here. It's going to be very interesting to see. I think it was a little more ballsy by Randy Brown to take this fight than Jared Gooden. I think Randy Brown has a lot more to lose. What do you think?
Oh, I absolutely agree with you, man. And if you look at the thing that I've kind of noticed about Randy Brown, I'm a big fan, dude. Don't get me wrong. I'm a really big fan of this dude. I love the length. I love all of that. But look at this matchup, man. He's not bigger or longer than Jared Gooden. He's 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. Jared Gooden is 6'4" with a 77-inch reach. So now you're getting a little taste of that. All right, man, you ain't the bigger, stronger dude. I think Jared Gooden is a little thicker, too. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing where I've seen him struggle just a little bit, right? Against Vicente Luque, you could just see like Randy Brown was just like, he's skinny and lanky versus Vicente Luque. Against other guys, no, he's big, he's sizable, all that, but he doesn't have that thickness, you know, Jared Gooden, you look at the man, he's a specimen. I mean, he's an Adonis. He's chiseled like a Greek god. Like, what are we talking about here? So let's talk about the actual fight, though, man. Solid jab does Randy Brown have, man. No pun intended on that one either. And he's very poised on the ground, man. His BJJ chops are legit. I mean, those long limbs, man, you wrap those legs around somebody, you get that long arm around the neck or something, and being a little skinnier, man, I'm telling you, the skinny guys, those blades are sharp right there. That's why Tony Ferguson is always so good at the submissions, just skinny with the sharp-ass fucking wrists and forearms, just choking people. But Jared Gooden, explosive athlete. So that's the question here, AJ. You can be really good at jiu-jitsu. You can be really good at wrestling, which, I mean, we saw Jared Gooden get, out-wrestled twice, basically, in his last 3 fights. But the man is very explosive, and I think that's going to play a big part into this. I think it's going to be tough to get him onto the ground unless Randy Brown is very technically sound here. Do you agree, or how do you see this one playing?
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100% on that one. I think the only way Randy Brown's going to be able to get this one to the ground is in some weird exchange where things happen. You know, like he's not going to shoot a conventional blast double or even a single leg takedown. He's going to have to do some weird stuff where things just get going and it kind of just happens, kind of falls into his lap, almost like how it did for the Alex Oliveira, for the Cowboy Oliveira fight. He didn't shoot a blast double or anything. He just got up on the cage, put the backpack on, and got those long limbs surrounding him, little tarantula style, and was able to use his weight to get him to take down. So, yeah, I agree with you, though. Jared Gooden is a very gifted athlete. It's just going to see how he puts it together, how he puts the ones and twos together, because he does have nice head movement, good takedown defense, very snappy jab. It's just combining all of those with that athleticism that's going to take him far.
Well, what's interesting is that we saw in his last fight against Nicholas Stolze, we saw the Jared Gooden that allowed him to storm onto the UFC scene. Before the UFC, bro, we're like, this dude's knocking everybody out, bro. Like, one-hitter quitters, get the fuck out of there, right? A little bit of a mishaps in the UFC, and then he finally got it. So do you think, first off, that's a confidence booster for Gooden? Of course. And do you think Randy Brown saw that and says, all right, man, I can't be reckless with this man because one right hand is going to put me to sleep? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you have to, right? You're doing any tape on this guy, and you think this dude touches me. He has the heavyweight power at 170 and the
Mhm.
speed of 170, so it's a very dangerous combination. Although I don't know, man, because for that X factor that Brown has of that wild man style, that kind of unconventional, I'm here to scrap, I'm
Mhm.
mean mugging, doing the whole stuff. I think that leads to a little bit of that intangible aspect that we were talking about with Randy Brown going forward. So I wouldn't leave as much of that behind as be as worrisome about it as Jared Gooden knocking you out. You got to be more a little bit more on the advantage, thinking I'm going to knock this dude out, even though he has all the power going forward.
I got you, man. I will say this. It's odd because Jared Gooden is the more experienced fighter in terms of overall MMA bouts, 18-6 with Jared Gooden and 13-4 for Randy Brown. But Randy Brown 7-4 in the UFC. So we're talking about actual quality of opponents. I mean, Randy Brown has the edge there very clearly. Now, I want to say this is a very clear, striker versus striker grappler, right? Where Brown could just submit Gooden. But I do believe Gooden is like a BJJ Brown belt, man. Like, he has BJJ chops himself, man. He just hasn't really been able to showcase that like that. 83% takedown defense for Gooden, 71% takedown defense for Randy Brown. And listen, man, this is going to be really interesting how it plays out because it's a fight ender versus, Randy Brown can end you in one punch too, man. So let's put some respect on his name as well. When we're talking about the notable wins for Randy Brown, we got Mickey Gall, Alex Oliveira, Warley Alves, and Brian Barberena, man. And he finished 3 of those 4 opponents. The only one he didn't finish there was Mickey Gall, interestingly enough. Now, Nicholas Stoltz is the only one for Gooden, man. It's going to be fun. It might be short. It might be long. We'll see what happens, AJ. But who are you going with and why?
I'm going with the rude boy on this one,
Rude
man. I'm
boy.
rocking with rude boy Randy Brown over here, and I'm going KO round 3. I think it's
Ooh.
going to be interesting. I think those. I know it's this is a ballsy pick
Yeah.
on my part as far as the finish goes.
Yeah.
This one could go either way. To be honest with you, man, I think Brown has a little bit more of that X factor, that chip on his shoulder, where things kind of unpredictably happen, and I think that's the only way he's going to get the knockout. He's not going to get it by a technical, crisp 1-2 down the pipe or anything. Where Jared Gooden, he's very technical, and he's able to stay a little bit more calm in the pocket, where both that kind of favors a little bit of both of these guys. You have the wildness of Brown and the calmness of Gooden going forward. It's going to be very interesting. But like I said, I got Brown KO round 3. What about you, Derek? How you see it going down and why?
Well, listen, man, I think now is the time to capitalize if you're Jared Gooden. I really believe that, man. And I don't see how he could win the fight unless he knocks him out personally or finish him somehow, some way. I don't see how he could win the fight on points. But I'm gonna take a flyer. And folks, what I say when I say what I mean when I say a flyer on a fighter specifically is that they have a shot of winning. Clearly not the greatest shot, but there is something that I'm seeing in the tape that can show up for a finish, a win somehow, some way. So I'm going Jared Gooden on this one, man, believe it or not. And I'm going to a TKO round 2. I think Jared Gooden, one thing that I love about him, man, he has a sneaky jab / left hook. It starts off as a jab and pops over as a left hook, right? And I think he might have a speed advantage. I think Randy Brown is longer, right? And he's longer and lengthier, but Jared Gooden is faster and more explosive. So I'm going to pick Jared Gooden here because this is just momentum. Everything building up, man. He's coming off the big knockout win. He's probably got a little more confidence in himself. And now he's saying, give me whoever you want. Imagine he wins against Randy Brown, AJ. Imagine what that does for his stock. He's through the roof. So, like you said earlier, this is a lot more risk, a lot more pressure on Randy Brown himself, and I think he might be feeling that coming into fight night. So I'm going Jared Gooden TKO round 2, man. So I'm taking the plus 200 underdog. And you'll see, folks, this is going to be my second pick out of the 5 where I have gone for the underdog, the big underdog, right? So not always guaranteed to win, but sometimes, AJ, what do we say on this program? You got to risk it to get the biscuit, and I'm taking a shot this one, man. So we'll see what happens, man. So let's move on to the next one.